Yeah, welcome to the show.
Big coverage here, of course, hurricane warning. It's something we've done a few times, and we have a lot of new viewers, a lot of new residents of Florida, so we want to keep them prepared. And for the old timers who have been through it in the past, they kind of know the routine, but some things have changed in the last 10 or 11 years and 12 years.
Getting a lot of questions in. Ashley, you've seen some all day as well.
We just received one from a viewer, and this is something we're hearing from many people. I am a mother of 3 teenage sons. This woman's name is Cherie, and she says, what do I do? When do I evacuate? And where do I go?
Great question. And in fact, that's the first question you should be asking when you make your hurricane plan. Am I in an evacuation area? If I am, where am I going to go if they come in and they say, listen, it's time for you to evacuate? Right now, I believe we have voluntary evacuations for the A and B zones in Palm Beach County. So if you go to WPTV.com, you click on the survival guide, you'll see it right there. Click on the weather section, and then you'll see the hurricane section. It pops up immediately, and it'll show you the evacuation zones for our area. Those evacuation zones are based on storm surge, so they're based on kind of a worst case scenario for the water coming in along the ocean, and then those people need to leave first. So find out if you're in an evacuation area, and if you are, we all have this old saying, run from water, hide from wind. So get away from the coastline, get in a well-built structure that's preferably in your same county or a neighboring county. We recommend people don't go to Orlando or Tampa or into Fort Myers. Try to stay here, because the first thing you want to do after the storm passes is get back home, and you're going to have a tough time doing that. In fact, you'll probably have a tough time getting to Orlando in the next 24 hours, simply because Turnpike and 95 and all those roads become parking lots. Historically, Francis, Jean, and Wilma, it takes hours and hours to go from South Florida even to Orlando. So we recommend that you try to stay in this area. Just get in a house or structure that is well built, preferably concrete block that has great hurricane shutters or impact glass that is well protected. And I always recommend, I think it's great if you stay with friends or family at the same time, because they can, it adds to the comfort level, and it gets you through the storm, and you can work with those people, and you can all, it's, I don't want to call it a party, but at least it's a comforting experience rather than something that's very traumatic. Yes.
Calm is a major part of this. And another question we received is, what is storm surge? We hear that, and it sounds like, oh, the storm is just pushing something up.
And I think a lot of people think it's just this wall of water that comes at you like a tsunami. It is not. It's something that builds over hours and hours and hours. Bob Sheets, the former director of the Hurricane Center, gave me a great example of storm surge. We were at dinner one night, and he grabbed a cup, and he held it up, and he said, imagine this is filled with water, and you blow across the top of it. You're forming a mini storm surge on the other side of the cup, because the air that you're blowing is blowing that water up against, and it's piling it up against the coastline. I made a little graphic, actually it's in the background here, to show you. And here's what happens. That wind persistently blows up against the beaches, hour after hour after hour, and the water level gets higher and higher. And eventually that water level can break over the dunes, and we've seen it in previous hurricanes where it comes over A1A, and it inundates areas that don't typically, even at the high water level, get this. Now, I've just looked at the storm surge maps, and kind of the worst case scenario at this point appears to be 3 to 4 feet along the coastline. Interesting thing that happened in Francis and Jean was that the highest storm surge was not along the beaches. It turned out that it was in the intercoastal and up through the Indian River. And what was happening is the water was piling in the inlets, and that water was trapped. It had nowhere to go, so it got higher and higher. Whereas on the beaches, it has a chance to circulate. It can go north, that water can go south, it can go underneath. But in the intercoastal, it gets higher. And in Francis and Jean, we had about, emergency managers told me later, about 5 to 6 feet of storm surge in some spots. We do not get the worst case scenario that they see in the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico is very shallow, and the water has the ability to pile up very, very fast there. Here along the Atlantic, you go a couple miles off the coastline, and you're in a couple hundred feet of water. So it drops off very quickly, so that water is able to circulate much easier, and you don't get the significant storm surge. Gulf of Mexico, the big hurricanes, Camille and Katrina, we're talking 20, 25 feet of storm surge. Here, a maximum worst case scenario would be about 15 to 18 feet. And you have to go back to Hurricane Andrew down in Miami to get those type of numbers. So Francis and Jean were about 5 to 6 feet. Here, Right now, you can go to the Hurricane Center, their website, and they have a new product. It's a storm surge product, and you can go right down to your community. It's a map, zoom in, and see exactly what the predicted storm surge is for our area. And I mean, in most spots right now, it's about 3 to 4 feet.
Not often we get to pick your brain, Steve, us in the mornings here, but I want to ask one quick question, and we're going to talk about some phone banks we have available. Wind speed versus wind gusts. If you could just explain wind gusts.
Well, so when the Hurricane Center issues their bulletins, they'll come out, and right now we're around 120 miles an hour. So somewhere in the hurricane, the winds are 120 miles an hour. Not through the entire storm, but somewhere in that storm. Usually it's on the right side of the track. The wind gusts are typically 10 to 15% stronger than that. So you're looking at winds, let's say it's 120 miles an hour, you're looking at gusts that are around 130, maybe 140.
And those are sporadic?
Yeah, they're sporadic, and it is the gusts that typically do the damage to homes and structures. The persistent wind isn't the issue. It is these gusts and these feeder bands that come in, and let's say you have a shingle or a tile that is a little compromised on your roof. Those gusts come in and they push at it, they pop it up, and then you get a situation where your entire roof starts to become compromised. You get water in the roof, or you get siding of your house, whatever it might be. But it's the gusts that become the real issue in a hurricane. So that's what we're watching. So we're talking sustained winds here, maximum high tropical storm force, maybe minimal hurricane, but the gusts can be 10% stronger. So add another 10 miles an hour. Here's an I don't want to ramble on here, but here's an interesting fact too. And this came up earlier at the emergency management briefing at noon. In high-rise buildings along the coastline, the high-rises that go along Boca, Singer Island, up on the Treasure Coast and Hutchinson Island, some of those condos are 20 and 30 stories high. And up 10 stories in a condo is you add an extra 10% to the wind speed. So instead of 100-mile-an-hour wind, you're looking at 110-mile-an-hour wind. That doesn't sound like much, but it is. And it can be the difference between your patio furniture blowing around or the windows blowing out of your house.